In the name of Allah, the Creator and the Instructor, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this presentation where we will explore one of the most influential ethical theories in history, virtue ethics theory. In this presentation, we will dive into what the virtue ethics theory is, why we have to choose this theory, the advantages for this theory, and disadvantages for it. So, virtue ethics theory, in a simple words, it is building a good life through moral character. The definition of virtue ethics theory is a moral theory that emphasizes the development of good character traits or virtues in determining what is morally right, rather than focusing on the morality of specific actions or consequences of these actions. Virtue ethics asks, what kind of person should I be? And what virtues should I cultivate? Why we have to choose virtue ethics theory? Unlike other ethical theories that emphasize rules or outcomes, virtue ethics emphasizes character and moral development over time. It is based on Aristotle's philosophy, where the goal of life is to achieve eudaimonia, a state of flourish- flourishing and well-being. A virtuous person naturally makes a good decisions because they have developed virtues like courage, honesty, and compassion through practice and experience. Now we will go for the advantages. There is many advantages for this theory, but I choose one to explain why it is a great theory. Firstly, it is focused on character development. For example, a doctor who strives to be compassionate and kind to patients doesn't need a rule to tell them to help others. They, they do it because it is a part of their character. That means instead of just following rules or seeking the best outcome, virtue ethics aims to make a person genuinely moral. Secondly, flexible and context sensitive. For example, if telling the full truth might severely hurt someone unnecessarily, a virtuous person might choose to soften the truth rather than be brutally honest. In other words, if telling the full truth might severely hurt someone, it is unnecessarily, a virtuous person might choose to soften the truth rather than be brutally honest. Finally, encourage lifelong moral growth. For example, A shy person who gradually practices courage, such as speaking in front of small groups, will become more confident over time. That's mean virtues are not something we are born with. They develop over time through practice and repetition. Now it is the time for disadvantages. There is some disadvantages for this theory. So I choose three over and I will discuss it. So number one, lack of clear guidelines for decision making. Example, if you work for a company and discover corruption, should you report it? That's mean honesty. Or stay silent to protect your colleagues. Loyalty. A virtue ethics doesn't give a direct answer. In other words, virtue ethics does not provide strict rules, making it difficult to decide what is right in complex situations. Number two, subjectivity in defining virtues. For instance, if telling the truth might severely hurt someone unnecessarily, a virtuous person might choose to soften the truth rather than be brutally honest. In other words, different cultures and societies have different ideas about what qualifies as a virtue. Finally, conflicts between virtues. For example, if you know your friend made a big mistake, should you tell them the truth? This is honesty. Or should you protect their feeling? Kindness. Which virtue is more important? That's mean. Virtues sometimes uh, contradict each other, making moral decisions difficult. Now it is the time for the conclusion for this presentation. Firstly, virtue ethics focuses on building good character instead of just following rules or seeking the best results. It provides flexibility in ethical decision making, but lacks clear guidelines for difficult situations. It emphasizes moral growth and personal development, but virtues can be subjective and hard to measure. Thank you so much for your attention. Please, if you have any comment you want to discuss, I'm really happy to discuss it with anyone. This is Alhareht Alowaidat. Thank you.